Have you ever wondered why the individuals who are labeled as toxic by the weeping masses are often the very same ones who seem to command the highest salaries, occupy the most impenetrable fortresses of personal peace, and attract the highest-tier partners with the mere flick of a cold gaze? In a world obsessed with performative empathy and the suffocating cult of niceness, the word toxic has been weaponized into a social leash. It is the label the weak use to describe the self-sovereign. When you refuse to be a source of free emotional labor, they call you toxic. When you prioritize your mission over their fleeting drama, they call you toxic. When you possess the audacity to be a complete unit, unbothered by the mercurial whims of the collective, they cast you out of the garden of their mediocrity. But here is the secret the Florentine masters knew and the modern psychology of power confirms. In the marketplace of human interaction, being good is a liability, but being strategically toxic is the ultimate insurance policy. Imagine the subject of our study, a 2D vector-animated puppet of the modern people-pleaser. He is a frantic creature, eyes wide and vibrating with the need for approval, his hands perpetually outstretched to offer his time, his money, and his sanity to anyone with a sad story or a demanding tone. He is the nice guy, the supportive friend, the empath. He believes he is building social capital, but in reality he is a bankrupt state. He is hemorrhaging his most precious resource, his vital energy, into the black holes of other people's insecurities. In this satirical theater of the absurd, his kindness is not a virtue. It is a bribe he pays to a world that will never love him as much as it loves his utility. He is a tool, not a person, and when he eventually runs dry, the very people he helped will be the first to complain that he is no longer working properly. Contrast this with the archetype of the detached individual, the one the masses whisper about with a mixture of fear and repressed desire. This character moves through the 2D landscape with a chilling high-definition clarity. He does not seek to be liked, for he understands that being liked is a form of being managed. Instead, he seeks to be effective. He has mastered the Machiavellian truth that it is far safer to be feared than to be loved, especially when love in the modern era is just a synonym for convenience. He has built an inner citadel of stoic indifference, a fortress inspired by Marcus Aurelius, where the opinions of the shouting NPCs of society are treated like the chatter of distant birds, distinguishable but irrelevant. This is the art of detachment. It is the realization that your internal world is a sovereign kingdom and that most people are merely tourists who haven't paid for a ticket.
You must realize that every time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to justify your boundaries, or to make it right with someone who has no stake in your growth, you are leaking power. You are admitting that their reality has authority over your own. To be toxic in the eyes of the needy is simply to stop being a mirror for their ego. It is to say, my time is more valuable than your validation. It is a radical, offensive form of self-worth that acts like acid on the chains of social expectation. You are not being mean, you are being precise. You are pruning the garden of your life with a chainsaw, and while the neighbors might scream about the noise and the falling branches, they cannot deny that your sunlight has finally reached the ground. There is a dark, humorous efficiency in this detachment. While the nice individuals are trapped in 5-hour texting marathons, decoding the subtext of a ghosted message, the detached individual has already moved on to the next objective. He understands that in any dynamic, the one who is most willing to walk away is the one who holds all the leverage. This is not a game of cruelty, but a game of physics. By being toxic, by refusing to engage in the emotional hostage-taking that defines modern relationships, you become an enigma. You become a black hole of mystery that pulls others toward you, not because you are offering them a prize, but because they are desperate to know how you can be so comfortably alone. Stop now and look at your own ledger of loyalty. How many people in your life are there because of who you are, and how many are there because of what you provide? If you stopped being convenient today, how many would stay to see the real you? The fear of being called toxic is the only thing keeping you at a table where the food has gone cold and the company is sour. You are being guilted into a state of voluntary servitude by people who wouldn't spend a dime on your funeral. Machiavelli would laugh at your hesitation. He would tell you that the greatest weapon of the sovereign is the word no, and the greatest shield is a total, unshakable indifference to the labels the world tries to stick on your skin. You are being offered a choice. Stay nice and remain a footnote in someone else's story, or become toxic and finally start writing your own.
This toxic label is the tax the mediocre levy on the exceptional. To the person drowning in a sea of their own unmanaged emotions, your calm is an insult. To the person who relies on guilt to control their surroundings, your refusal to feel guilty is a declaration of war. We see it in the frantic 2D vector-animated world of the office, the friend group, and the bedroom. The nice guy archetype is a character whose primary function is to be a sponge for everyone else's damp problems. He is praised for his empathy, which is often just a high-status word for his inability to say no. He is the emotional equivalent of a public utility, available 24 hours a day, free of charge, and taken entirely for granted until the moment he stops providing the service. In the Machiavellian calculus, empathy without boundaries is not a virtue. It is a structural weakness that invites invasion. Consider the interpersonal arbitrage of the detached operator. While others are busy trading their peace for the fleeting highs of social approval, you are practicing a form of psychological hoarding. You are reclaiming the thousands of neural firings you once wasted wondering what they meant by that cryptic comment or why they haven't texted back. In the dark humor of our digital age, the most toxic thing you can do is to be seen and not reply. It is the ultimate strike against the modern ego, which craves a reaction, any reaction, to confirm its own existence. By withholding that reaction, you are effectively deleting the other person from your reality. You aren't arguing, you are simply refusing to recognize the argument as a valid use of your time. This is the monk mode of social dynamics, the cold, crystalline realization that your attention is a finite resource, and most people are simply not a high-yield investment. You have been taught since birth that you are a node in a network, responsible for the uptime of everyone else's happiness. This is a lie designed to keep you manageable. Seneca warned that no person hands out their money to passers-by, but to how many do each of us hand out our lives? You are currently an open vault bank, letting every emotional grifter and drama addict walk in and help themselves to your gold. To become toxic is to close the vault. It is to look at the fawn response, that involuntary urge to appease others to avoid conflict, and treat it like a virus to be purged. You must understand that the person who can endure the discomfort of someone else being disappointed in them is the only person who is truly free. Everyone else is just a hostage to the expectations of people they don't even like.
Observe the satirical beauty of the cold shoulder as a strategic withdrawal of capital. In the 2D theater, the victim of detachment begins to spiral, their lines becoming more desperate, their animation more jagged and frantic. They aren't upset because you hurt them. They are upset because they lost access to the emotional battery that was you. They are mourning the loss of a servant, not a friend. This is why the label toxic is so useful. It's a social alarm bell rung by those who can no longer manipulate you. When you hear it, you shouldn't flinch. you should smile. It is the sound of your chains breaking. It is the notification that you have finally exited the validation economy and entered the sovereignty era. You are a practitioner of the Machiavellian scalpel. You are cutting away the necrotic tissue of old loyalties and useless obligations. Why do you still care about the opinion of a cousin you haven't seen in 3 years? Why does the disapproval of a random stranger on the internet feel like a physical blow? It is because your ego shell is too thin. You have been socialized to be porous, to let the world's noise seep into your marrow. Detachment is the process of thickening that shell until it becomes an armor of obsidian. It is the realization that you are not a partner, a son, or a friend first. You are an individual mission first. If those roles facilitate the mission, they stay. If they drain the mission's resources, they are liquidated. You must embrace the irony that the more toxic you are in terms of protecting your time and focus, the more people will actually respect you. Humans are wired to value what is scarce. If your time is easy to get, it is worth nothing. If your attention is a constant stream of empathetic listening, it is treated like tap water. But if your attention is a rare, hard-won commodity that can be withdrawn at a moment's notice, it becomes liquid gold. You are shifting from being a commodity to being a luxury. You are no longer the nice person who is always there. You are the detached person whose presence is a privilege. This is the paradox of the social hunt. The one who stops running toward others is the only one others will ever truly run toward. Stop asking for permission to be the villain in their small-minded stories. Let them cast you as the heartless phantom, the cold strategist, the toxic enigma. Their script is irrelevant. You are busy building an empire of one, where the only currency that matters is your own unshakable peace and the cold, hard efficiency of your own progress. You are learning that the most powerful thing you can do with your life is to become a nothing to the people who offer you nothing. You are the shadow that they can no longer touch, the ghost that they can no longer haunt.
The culmination of this toxic journey is not a throne of skulls, but a quiet, sunlit room where the phone no longer dictates the rhythm of your pulse. You have successfully navigated the valley of guilt, that treacherous psychological terrain where the ghost of your former people-pleasing self tried to pull you back into the mud of mediocrity. In the 2D vector-animated finale of your old life, you were shown cutting the final string, the one connected to your need to be understood. This is the ultimate detachment. To be understood is to be captured. When you stop explaining yourself, you become a mystery that cannot be categorized and therefore cannot be controlled. You have realized that toxic is simply the word the world uses for a person who has finally found their own no and decided to keep it in their pocket like a loaded weapon. Look at the satirical wreckage you've left behind. There are people still staring at their screens, waiting for an apology you will never send, a justification you will never write, and a closure that they expect you to provide. They are like NPCs in a game you've already finished and uninstalled. Do you see the profound, almost religious tranquility in this? By being toxic enough to put your own mental health over their collective comfort, you have achieved a state of apatheia that the ancient Stoics would envy. You are no longer a participant in the social hunger games of who can be the most supportive, the most available, or the most woke to everyone else's trauma. You have performed a radical act of self-preservation, and the result is a bank account full of time, energy, and unpolluted focus. You must confront the final, most beautiful truth of the Machiavellian mind. Once you stop caring about being the villain in their stories, you finally have the energy to be the hero in your own. Most people spend their entire lives trying to edit the version of themselves that exists in other people's heads. They are like 2D characters trying to paint their own portraits on a canvas they don't even own. But you have walked away from the canvas entirely. You have realized that the you that exists in their minds is none of your business. If they want to see you as a monster, let them. It keeps the pests away from your garden. If they want to see you as toxic, let them. It ensures they won't ask you for a favor. Your reputation is a shadow, and a wise man does not try to catch his own shadow.
This is the rebirth of the sovereign individual. You emerge from this crucible of detachment with a spirit that is anchored in the bedrock of your own values. You no longer look for a reflection of your worth in the likes of a stranger or the approval of a toxic family member. You are a self-contained unit, a closed-loop system of self-validation. This is the pay that the title promised, not just in the literal sense of the wealth you've accumulated by stopping the drain on your resources, but in the psychological wealth of absolute inner peace. You have reached the God view of Epictetus, where you see the drama of humanity as a distant comical play. You are in the world, but you are no longer of the world's neuroses. Imagine the final frame of this animation, a character standing on the edge of a vast, tranquil ocean, their back to the noisy, flickering city of the past. The city is full of screaming notifications, "We need to talk" banners, and the frantic neon lights of social expectation. But the character is looking at the horizon. They are breathing deeply, their animation smooth and stabilized. They have shed the jagged, vibrating lines of anxiety. They are reborn, not into a new relationship or a new social circle, but into a new relationship with themselves. They have found the inner citadel that Marcus Aurelius spoke of, the fortress that no external force can breach because the owner has stopped inviting the enemy inside. You are free. You are powerful. You are, in the eyes of a dying social order, toxic. And it is the most beautiful thing you have ever been. You have learned that the highest form of love is the one you stopped begging for and started giving to yourself. The war is over, not because you won the argument, but because you realized the argument was a cage and you simply walked through the bars. You have achieved the ultimate Machiavellian victory. You have conquered your own need for the world's permission. The silence of your detachment is the most profound statement you have ever made. You are no longer a character being animated by the whims of the crowd. You are the one holding the pen. And for the first time in your life, the page is blank, white, and full of infinite, silent potential. The only way to stop being a pawn is to realize the game was never real.